Hello guys, today we are back with our 2004 Toyota Matrix and we're going to be replacing the belt tensioner and the belt. I went ahead and got a new belt as well for this engine. I was doing a water pump and belt tensioner replacement on this engine and I got an inexpensive belt tensioner and the little spot right here where you crank down on it to relieve pressure on the pulley snapped off. It's a cheap part, and there was no reinforcement or anything here, and hardly had to apply any pressure at all on it, and it snapped off. This should not be a difficult job for most people to do. Let me show you what we've got going on here, and I'll show you what steps are going to be needed for us to get this job. Okay, on the side of the engine you can see the belt tensioner and everything all down below. You've got the piston that applies pressure or downward force to there. You got the bolt that it pivots on, and when that end down there gets pushed down, it raises up on the belt down there. See if I can, right there, to put tension on the belt. To release that tension, there's a spot that's broken right there that you can see. Probably too much light. You got that hole sticking out in a broken spot where your fake bolt goes on, and you put a long bar. They make bars that you can buy just for this, but this engine has enough room to get a breaker bar or torque wrench in there. Put it on that and apply tension to it, and it pushes down on this end here so that pulley down there pushes down and releases the pressure so you can get your belt off of your alternator pulley. Now, in the job I was doing, I was just at the end of getting this all done, ready to put this on there, just started applying pressure on that, hadn't even pulled hard really yet, and it snapped off because it's a cheap part. I'll show you the replacement that we got. This is a Gates part, not a no-name part. And on the one that's on there right now, it's aluminum, but this area right here, it's right at the edge of this. And on the old one, I'll grab the piece sitting right here. See how this edge is really thin? There's really no reinforcement there at all. So there was nothing to hold on any pressure, and it snapped off. The replacement from Gates, look how beefy the back side of that is. It's beefier than the bolt is, because you've got this section here and a shoulder that's built up on both sides and a piece there as well. So you've got all this reinforcement here so you can put more pressure on this. This is twice as expensive as that one, which I was trying to save a little bit of money, and that's what you get sometimes when you try to save a little bit of money. And there is what the little piston looks like. There's the belt that turns nice and smooth. Great part. If I happen to break this one, I still have my old one, I believe, sitting around here somewhere, and I can just take this part off and put it on the old one. So what we have to do, there's a bolt that passes through here. That bolt is that big one right there. And if you look, the fender well is right in the way. So you have to remove 3 bolts on the motor mount. There's one right down there, one over on this side, right there, and then one on the side right there as well, down there. If the light wasn't in the way. And I'm going to have to remove those, get some boards under the oil pan. There's a spot where the oil pan kind of makes a transition. It steps down, and that section right there is kind of reinforced. So you want to put your boards and your left point under there to apply pressure across a broader area of the oil pan, and just lift it up a couple of inches so that bolt can come out on top of that little ledge down there. It gives it plenty of room. And you have to remove the nut right back there, which is actually on a stud, so the whole stud may come out. To be able to get that the point at which your tensioner mounts up against. So, when you put pressure on this, the tensioner has something to push up against, the piston. So it's not a complicated job. It's just, it's a cramped space to work in, so you've got to be careful. Now, when you put the belt back on, I'm going to replace the belt. The belt that's on here is in good shape, so I'm going to save it as a spare. I'll throw it in the back of the car or something as a spare. Belt routing diagram on this. This is the one without air conditioning. It's really easy. You've got your crank pulley, your water pump, your tensioner pulley, which is the one we're going to be replacing. The tensioner goes over here. This is your power steering, and this is your alternator. The belt just loops across the crank pulley on the bottom, shoots between these two, and then splits out to the other two. So it's real easy. Loop the bottom, shoot through the center, and spread it out to the middle. Now, if you have air conditioning, you'll have a pulley over here. The only difference is it loops around that and then back and then shoots through and out. That's the only difference between this car with and without air conditioning. And this is the 1.8 liter Toyota engine that you will find in a lot of Toyota products. This is a Toyota Matrix XR from 2004. It was in this car from 2003 through 2008. This same vehicle was sold as a Pontiac Vibe 2003 to 2008, and the same motor was also found in a 2003 through 2008 Toyota Corolla. So, first things first, I've got my engine cover already off just so I can, because it sticks out over here a little bit. I just want it out of the way. I got my battery terminal removed because I had to pull the alternator to get to the water pump. I still haven't hooked that back up, so we're just going to leave it alone. It's not a bad idea to unhook it if you're not sure. So first thing I'm going to do is get these bolts out of the motor mount and then get this thing jacked up a little bit so we can get this stuff out. I may try to pull that one off first back there, because if that stud comes off, if I've got it jacked up, it tries to hit the lines over on the side there. So while it's down, you can just take this hose, pop it out of its holder, and out of the way, and you've got more room, and it doesn't hit on anything there. So let me get my stuff and get these motor mount bolts out first, and we'll go from there. Alrighty, as you can see there, I've got my bolts off. Now I'm going to loosen that right down there. These are 14 millimeter here, by the way. This is 12. And the best way to get into this is with a wrench. And if you happen to have one of these ratcheting wrenches, these things are awesome. I got a set of metric ones because everything seems to be metric these days, from Harbor Freight for like 25 bucks a set, and they are so sweet. I've used the heck out of them since I got them, and I've only had them like 2 weeks. Not quite enough, so I'm going to take that the rest of the way off. Can I get to it from here? Yes, I can. And I think, is it pulling the whole stud? I don't know. I think it's coming out by itself and leaving the stud. Oh, no, it's pulling the whole stud out. That's what I was afraid of. So that makes it a little finickier, because I got to get it out past all of that. As you can see, it's hard to get your hands down in here. Now, if I need to, I could grab the end of it. You see the end of it there has like a hex thing. If I needed to, I could grab that and hold onto it and pull the nut off and leave the stud in there. This thing doesn't want to focus, does it? It's too much to focus on. So let me get this the rest of the way out here, and it's almost out, actually. There it is right there. So let's see. If we can get this out. See, there's not a lot of space to work with down there, so I'm going to need 2 hands to finish that up. So let me get that out, and we will come back, jack it up, and get this bolt right here. All right, so I've got the engine jacked up so that that bolt will clear the fender well. That is a 17 millimeter, and I am working on getting that off. It's a fairly long bolt, so it takes a bit. I'm going to start it with this, and I'm going to move to my ratchet wrench. So I'm going to get that off, pull that off, and then the whole tensioner will just come right out, and I can either pull it out the back or the front. We'll see which way comes out best. All right, fillers, so there we go. There's the old part and the new part. And I got this broken bit just kind of set back up on there so you can see the difference. Look how, even just looking from the front, this has all this strengthening stuff around it. And that has nothing. Look from the side and see how much beefier and thicker that is compared to that one that has nothing. So no doubt, no wonder that broke. It was right on the edge, so all you had to do is put any force at all, and it just twisted right off. So if you see something that looks like that, run. Which is sad because the rest of this does look like a really good part. Although, if you look at the end of this, it's a little dinkier, and this is nice and heavy. That has a pretty dust cap. This doesn't, but it's all sealed there. I do like the bushing style pivot on this versus this. I mean, it is a bushing that's inside there, but I like this nylon better. I don't think that's going to wear very heavily over time because it's not an air. I mean, this doesn't sit there and pivot constantly. If the belt has a little bit of stress, this might move a little bit, but it's just a tiny bit. So there's not a lot of wear to that part right there. So we're going to take this part. What we do is we're going to basically just drop it straight in. First thing I'm going to do, though, is take the bolt off of the stud and then put the stud in there so that when I put this down in there, I can thread this right onto the stud and then put my nut on to hold it in place. So let me grab a pair of pliers and get that off real quick. All right, you can see back there I got my stud back in. So here's what we're going to do. See if I can get you guys set up so you can watch. See if this will work here. So what we got to do, this goes up. This orients like this when it drops in. So basically you just kind of drop it in. Make sure the idler pulley is kicked back this way, and then I gotta twist it a bit to get the I don't know if you guys can see this back here, to get this onto the stud. I might need to screw this stud in just a little bit more to give myself a bit more clearance. To get this by there. So let me do that. It's hard to do one-handed. And I'll come right back to you guys, I swear. Okay, so I got that on. Let me put this little nut on so it doesn't come off. I'm just going to put that there for right now. Now, I've got to get this big bolt. See if I can do this with you guys here. It's going to be hard to go in here. Okay, you guys are kind of in the way. Let me see if I can move you around here a bit. And shoehorn you in here so you can see a little bit of what's going on. Maybe that'll work. Don't know. Still kind of in the way a bit. I'm trying, guys. We're working on it. Not easy filming while working on a car. So I gotta wiggle this in just right to find where that bolt threads into in the block. And you can see it's such a tight space, it's hard to see. And I've lost my light. There it is. Down below, still shining away. We are almost on it. I gotta lift up on this. Push in. And there I have it started. All right. So I got that bolt started. I'm just gonna keep going until I bottom it out there. That's hard to do with that hand, and I'm that-handed. So I'm just gonna keep working on this a little bit. I'm gonna get these snugged down, just bottomed out, and then snug them down. The one on the top you don't want real tight, and the one on the bottom, I forget what the torque specs are, but it's not super tight either. You don't want to bind the pivot point up on it. So I'll see if I can look up the torque specs on that and let you guys know. If not, then don't forget to check that in your manual before you torque this down. All right, I got that on now. I got both pieces on, and if you listen real carefully, hear a little bit of wiggle right there where the pivot point is. There should be a little, tiny bit of wiggle to let you know that you haven't over tightened that big bolt and bound that thing up, as it's going to be really difficult to do anything if you do. Your tensioner won't work properly. So now I've got to get my belt down in there and get ready to tension this properly. My new belt wound in place, and I've made sure if I look down through everything, the belt is on all of the grooves, sitting in all the grooves properly. Oh, it's not now. That one, you can see that one come loose down there. Maybe. So I've got to pull that tight. I'll do that when all I've really got to do is push it back in and pull that up, and it's tight. Yep, it's in there good now. So my pulley back there looks good. So now I've got to have two hands get on that fake nut there, and I'm slowly, before I even try to get the belt on, slowly gonna pull down on this. I get what I do. I get this in here, like so, and I might have to jack the engine down because it's up too high right now. But I'm going to pull slowly down on this. Very slowly. Just put a little bit of pressure and then give it a few seconds for that piston to compress. And do that about 3 times, just very slowly, so that I compress that piston about 3 times to make sure any air bubbles are purged out of that. The manufacturer will tell you to do that, and then I can put it on here. So let me. I think probably before I do that, I need to get my motor mount bolts back in. So let me get that. I'm going to jack the car down a little bit so it's almost touching, and then I can wiggle this mount back into place there. See, you got to wiggle it to line the bolt holes up, if you can tell. Alrighty, and we are done. And I got the engine cover back on. I have looked down carefully at all my spots that I can see. My pulley, my crank pulley, the belt is on that properly. It is properly seated back there on my power steering pump. It's poking out a little bit far on the water pump here, but as soon as I bust the engine over, that's not grooved or anything, so it'll pull right in line with this alternator pulley here. So it looks good to go. I don't have any antifreeze or coolant in this. I could start it up for just a second if I really wanted to. But I think I'm going to go get antifreeze real quick. And then we'll come back and put the antifreeze in it, and we will call her good. That's all there is to replacing that tensioner. By the way, the manufacturer did say when you crank down on that fake bolt right there, it can take 5 seconds or so for that piston to compress. It's cold in the garage this morning. It's about 45 or 50 degrees, so it took closer to about 10 seconds. So be patient. Don't put undue force on it. Just put even pressure on that bar, and you'll see that slowly go down and rotate like this, and that tensioner wheel will go further down, which allows your belt to come further out this way. So just be gentle with it. Don't do undue force. Even though you're going gentle, sometimes that doesn't work, as you can tell. So get good parts, you guys. The parts matter sometimes. And I learned that lesson. Only about a $35 lesson, but I still learned a lesson.